Greetings guys, gals, and non-binary pals, and welcome back to another video. I hope that you are well and I hope that you are fighting because there is a lot to be fighting for. So I have a separate account on YouTube that I use to watch the content that I talk about. So it leads me to having some very interesting recommendations and homepage. And it leads me to finding videos and channels that I wish to talk to you about, and today that channel is Lauren Chen. Lauren Chen is a conservative commentary YouTuber. She makes a lot of videos about a lot of different things, covering a whole spectrum of, conservative talking points. So there's a lot of, as you expect, like transphobia, anti-diversity, a lot of anti-woke left kind of stuff. So onto the videos. The first one that I wanted to talk about and watch with you is called TikTok Screams Daddy Issues. And I just really enjoyed this video, so I wanted to talk about it.
Hey, Lauren here. Let's talk about the psychology of the queer community. I want to be really clear in this video that being gay or gay people, it's not the same thing as being part of the queer community.
You can be gay, but just don't tell people and don't act on it or be that in public. Don't make it a thing, No.
So for a while now, people like myself have looked at those in the queer community and kind of thought all right, if you were someone who was around in the 2000s, clearly you would have just identified as goth or emo, and that would be how you got attention back then.
A few years ago, people would have identified as goth or emo, but now they're identifying as queer. I really hate to break this to you, but a majority of goth and emo people are queer. That's a very, very prevalent part of that community. Most people who went through a goth or emo phase are queer. They were queer at the time. They are still queer now. And a lot of people who are still goth or emo are also queer. I don't know where you got the idea that that was not the case. You're basically saying back then the queer kids were in the closet. They didn't tell anyone they were queer, and they wore black and listened to My Chemical Romance. That was their form of rebellion. But it's really disgusting now that the queer people are actually out and look much happier and are wearing color and listening to Stray Kids. That's kind of disgusting, actually. It's the same thing, but just now people are more open to expressing themselves wholeheartedly, and a lot of people still do go through an emo or goth period or whatever. That hasn't disappeared. There's just also another section of queer people. It's really not that hard, man. I went through an emo phase and I am queer, and now I'm in my colorful Stray Kids era. You can do both.
So there's this trend on TikTok, and it's called No Gay Has All Five. And for what I can tell, the most popular version of this tag is that no gay person has all five, including math skills, a good relationship with their father, a clean driving record, money, and good mental health.
Hold up, put a finger down. Math skills, I'm pretty good at maths. Good relationship with your father, clean driving record. Yeah. I've crashed twice on accident. Drove into a ditch one time. Does that? No. Yeah. Have money? Yeah, I'm doing pretty alright. And mentally stable.
And very few people in the queer community, in fact, have all five, and it seems like the number one thing that is missing is the relationship with fathers.
Okay, but same. Now, the next part's not super important. It's just a compilation of people saying they have daddy issues effectively, but I think this is the funniest thing in the entire world, so I'm going to keep it in because this is what she put in her video.
It is statistically impossible for a gay to possess all five of the following: math skills, a good relationship with their father. It is statistically impossible for a gay to possess all five of the following: math skills, a good relationship with their father. It is statistically impossible for a gay to possess all five of the following: Math skills. A good relationship with their father. It is statistically impossible for a gay to possess all five of the following. Math skills. A good relationship with their father. It is statistically impossible for a gay to possess all five of the following. Math skills. A good relationship with their father.
Like, that's so funny to me. It just kept going. I was laughing at that for way too long. Like, is it actually that funny? Probably not, but I think it's hilarious. It's relatability, right? Like, same. Fucking same. I understand that if that's not something that you relate to, it's not funny. But it's not meant to be funny for you. This is meant to be funny for the people who relate to it. This is funny to me because I am a queer person with a not very good relationship with my father, and I like to make fun of my trauma. You do not relate to this. So therefore, you will not find it funny.
Think about it. If you were part of a group of people and it turned out that like 90% of you had a bad relationship with probably your father, but perhaps your mother as well, like, wouldn't that be cause to maybe like, I don't know, examine your life choices a little?
Or, and hear me out here for a second, queer people have a bad relationship with their fathers because homophobia exists, and a lot of fathers and parents in general are not very accepting of their children being queer. If your father doesn't like the fact that you are queer, you're not gonna vibe. You know, it's not gonna be a good relationship. And it's even like the fact that, you know, even if your parents don't have a problem with you being queer, sometimes that's a really scary and difficult thing for you to process. And then you can lead to lack of communication with your parents, which can then lead to tension and a bad relationship with your parents.
But ask yourself why you're doing the things that you're doing, and try to find out if maybe perhaps the reason why you feel the need to like rebel against all of these social norms, which they absolutely do in the queer community, is because you're trying to get back at your father.
My parents are very, very inclusive. They don't care at all. I was raised with inclusive language my whole life. It was always like, whenever you get a boyfriend or a girlfriend, whatever. I have a whole video about that if you want to hear more about my like being raised gender neutrally, etc. But like my bad relationship with my parents comes from like mental illness and alcoholism, right? And I can't be queer to rebel against them because I was brought up being told it was okay to be gay. I never had to question my sexuality. I never thought about it. I never worried about it. I just kind of existed. I had a crush on who I had a crush on. Never thought much about it. My parents didn't care. Me, currently, with my rainbow hair and whatever, that's not a rebellion. That's me existing as myself and the person that my parents raised me to be, which is myself. And there's a whole range of issues that people have difficulties with their parent relationships, but people aren't gay to rebel against their parents, I promise you.
The reason why like the queer identity is so much more harmful and dangerous long term is because like queer communities actually have a vested interest and are actively trying to disrupt the nuclear family and gender norms in society.
Yeah, because gender norms are stupid. And we should get rid of them. That's not a new idea. People have been talking about gender norms for like a really long time. Like a long time. This is not new. My parents raised me in a more gender neutral way in terms of like my life was, I got to dress myself. I got to choose what toys I played with and what colors I liked and things like that. So I had all the freedom in my self-expression my whole life. And my parents are cishet. So they're not pushing any like gay agenda or gender agenda. It's just the agreed upon idea that gender roles are holding people back. Like my dad was a stay-at-home dad for my young childhood while my mom worked as a higher up earning the money. It just happens and it's okay. And like that's not a problem. I don't understand why that's should be an issue. I'm still a cis woman growing up without like enforced gender norms, and being around enforced gender norms, at least in my home environment, did not impact my gender identity. Didn't impact my sexuality either. I am queer, sure, but like, I've kind of always been like that.
And now this actually brings us to the mental health part of the equation. It does seem like, all right, for the queer people who do happen to have a good relationship with their father, yeah, the mental health thing, that's a problem. Mental health is nothing to dismiss, and it's also definitely nothing to feel bad about. If you have mental health problems, in my opinion, it should be no more or less stigmatized than having, like, general health problems. Like, if I break my leg, that's not a good thing, a brave thing, and I shouldn't be celebrated for it, but I should definitely go to see a doctor about it. For some reason, when it comes to, like, the progressive left especially, and specifically the queer community, mental health issues have almost become like a badge of victimhood that they're actually proud of.
Mental illness is not a badge of victimhood that queer people wear proudly. That's not at all what it is, and I don't know how you could interpret it like that. Like, you're talking about how you need to destigmatize mental health and it is like a broken leg, right? And we should treat it as such. And I agree to an extent. You should be encouraged to get help for your mental health in the same way you are for your physical health. It should be treated equally in that term. However, it's not. It is still very stigmatized. And so people talking about it and making it a normal conversation allows people to feel less alone and less afraid, especially because mental illness is not something you can see. A broken leg, everyone can see that I have a broken leg. Everybody knows that they have to treat me slightly differently and adapt slightly so that they don't hurt me further. That is an understanding people have because I visibly have this injury that I am taking care of. If I have a mental illness, which I have several, other people don't know that, right? And I don't know that other people do. And that can be an extremely isolating thing. If everyone keeps it to themselves, no one knows what's going on. Everyone thinks that they're the only one. And that's really scary and that's really lonely. And so people talking about it means that you feel less alone and you know there are other people who are struggling with it as well.
And it's definitely not that I think you should feel bad about having mental health issues, but once more, like, if I were part of a group and like a disproportionate number of us had mental health challenges, I would maybe start to question if whether the mental health challenges were part of what led us to be in that group.
And maybe there is a very logical explanation as to why queer people would be more likely to be mentally ill. Homophobia, transphobia, queerphobia exists in this world. We live in a heteronormative world. We are surrounded by people who are invalidating us or bullying us, committing hate crimes. So many queer people are kicked out of their homes. They're disowned by their families. They lose friends. They lose jobs. It is really scary and really difficult for a lot of people. And obviously, that has repercussions on your mental health.
Sure, a lot of these people making these TikTok videos might kind of be playing things up to make a funny video to put on social media. But I mean, at the end of the day, I just don't think it's a good thing to not have a good relationship with your parents or to have mental health problems. And if these people are being serious about it, that these are things they actually struggle with, that should be a topic for serious discussion, in my opinion, not just some cute throwaway tag.
It's just so funny to me how all of this just goes so over her head. Like, we're making fun of ourselves. We're not making fun of the issues. We're not making fun of mental health. We're not making fun of family trauma, bad relationships with your parents. We're making fun of ourselves and we're finding relatability within people who are like us and therefore comforting other people who are going through it by making them realize it's not as scary and they aren't alone. We deal with our trauma like this. Our generation, Gen Z, this is how we cope with shit. Like, I'm sorry if you don't like it, if you don't vibe with it, that's fine. You don't have to be a part of it, but I personally find it very comforting. You have a good relationship with your parents and you're mentally well. I'm happy for you. Good for you. Sounds great. But like, stay out of our business. Like, let me make fun of myself, right? Now, I know we've been here for a long time, but I've written notes for several videos, so we're gonna keep going. The next video that I wanted to talk about is The Destruction of Beauty, a Postmodern Feminist Mess, which is basically just 12 minutes of hypocrisy. And I want to talk about it because this is an issue that I see people bring up all the time, and I just think it's so ridiculous, and it's just so nonsensical. And so I wanted to share And so we are going to do that.
Progressives, the left, they are not for objective truth or objective reality. In their eyes, everything is a social construct that can and should be deconstructed. We see this with the nuclear family structure. We see this with the concept of gender, sexuality. If there is a principle or institution that exists, they want to try to dismantle it.
Because things are social constructs, we can deconstruct them. You can see this through history. There's a lot of cultures that have a third gender or even go beyond that because it's a construct that we have created and enforced and took away from them because we didn't agree with it. The same with sexuality. Look throughout history. Sexuality has always been fluid. Pretty much everywhere, sexuality has been fluid. You look at the entire animal kingdom, and homosexuality, bisexuality, whatever, exists among hundreds of different species. This is not exclusive to humans, which is another way you know that we've made this up. Monogamy is also not something that has always existed. Polyamory is something that is very, very old and has been happening literally forever. Forever. You're talking about the nuclear family and monogamy? No.
As true as it is that they are absolutely trying to deconstruct beauty, at the same time, nobody likes to be told that they are not beautiful. You can tell a progressive that they don't have the conventional family structure and they'll be like, yeah, that's right, I don't. You can tell them that, hey, you don't have the usual gender identity or whatever, and they'll be like, yes, that's the point. But if you say that to them about beauty, people are gonna get upset.
That's because the idea of deconstructing beauty is more about inclusivity of what beautiful is. We're just talking about redefining the idea of that by being more inclusive to a larger group of people because, like, I find this person beautiful and you might not find them beautiful, but that doesn't make them not beautiful because if I think they're beautiful, then they clearly are. And you can't compare, like, being like, you don't have a traditional family, and they're like, yeah, I don't, with being like, you're not beautiful, because it's like saying you don't have a family. You know, like, there's a difference between saying you don't have a traditional family and you don't have a family.
And everyone is obviously free to express themselves however they want. You can dress any way you like. That's not the point of this video. The point I'm trying to make is that there is a reason why the pink-haired feminist is such a stereotype. They are trying to buck the norms of beauty. And they can do that, but I just find it ironic how when you point out what they are doing, they all of a sudden get offended. And it's like, well, if you did want to be considered mainstream good looking, then you would be adhering to the norms that we have set.
People aren't upset that they're not mainstream beautiful. People aren't upset that we're not, like, fitting the idea of what beauty is in the mainstream media. We're upset that the mainstream media isn't inclusive, and you're upset that they're trying to make it more inclusive. Like, I don't understand how you can be on the other side of this. I don't understand how and why you can back only seeing the same type of person over and over again. Like, that's boring. Are you not bored? Seeing the same exact, like, body type and, like, hairstyle and makeup and outfits and blah, 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 over and over and over again. It's boring. That doesn't represent humanity. That doesn't represent us as people. That's the problem. Because if we were all the same mold and we all looked exactly the same and we were all attracted to exactly the same thing and we all expressed ourselves exactly that would be so boring. That'd be so boring, and I would hate to live in a world like that.
If you look at works of art like the Venus de Milo, the Mona Lisa, those were from completely different times in history, but they are still considered beautiful and iconic. Are people in 500 years going to be looking at this tattooed, crazy-haired girl thinking, yeah, that is truly the Venus de Milo of the 21st century?
I honestly, personally, do not give a single fuck what someone in 500 years from now is going to think of me. I, like, literally couldn't care less. I don't care what you think of me. And you're alive right now. Why would I care about someone in 500 years? Are you really living your life thinking about what someone in 500 years is going to think of you? Because that's sad. Why would you do that to yourself? Live your life to make yourself happy. And like, as long as you're not hurting other people, why does everyone seem to have a problem with that? Why do you all seem to have a problem with that? And you're like not even proving the point that you think you are, because you're like this. You can see that the idea of beauty has always been the same throughout history based on the very limited amount of history that we see. Because all of these women that have been painted and sculpted in specifically European history all look exactly the same, and that has carried on into what our current beauty standard looks like. Okay, sure, fine, but again, we're talking about the mainstream media here. You insinuating that there haven't always been people who express themselves differently is so funny to me. The artworks that have lasted are sure the ones that people deem the most beautiful women. But like, people have always been different. You just see more of it now because we have more freedom and more things available to us. And also, we can share photos. Like, honestly, when you leave your house and you go into the city, how many people do you see covered in tattoos and piercings with rainbow hair? How many do you see? It is still a minority. It is not a majority of people. I don't know why you constantly act as though this is what everyone is doing and everyone is pushing. It is not everyone. It is a minority of people. It's a minority of people on the left. Like, exhausting.
And this is a trend that's actually become somewhat of a meme, the idea that when girls embrace this modern progressive feminist attitude, that their looks kind of go out the window. You want to present yourself as something that is beautiful, worth paying attention to, or do you want to present yourself as something that is bucking social norms? I mean, you can do either, but don't pretend that you can really do both, because you can't. Someone included a video of just different examples of all of these young girls who are beautiful facially, who have just gone down the road of postmodernism and are now presenting themselves in a way that is simply not attractive. Girls on the left, they look beautiful, they look healthy, they look happy. And then on the right, it's like they've transformed into these different beings.
And this, again, is where your point goes even further out the window, because you're talking about how these people aren't beautiful, right? They don't fit the standard of beauty, or more specifically, your standard of beauty, because you like more classic beauty. I personally disagree and find these people beautiful. This is more what I am attracted to. People who express themselves and are colorful and have piercings and tattoos and dyed hair and wear like freaking out there clothing and platform boots, etc. That's what I'm into. Instantly, I think you're so cool if you have like dyed hair and piercings and tattoos. And is that me saying that I'm so cool? Yeah, obviously. I find that beautiful and attractive. I love the self-expression and the artisticness. You don't find it beautiful, and that's okay. You don't have to. No one is forcing you to find that beautiful. You just have to accept that it is beautiful. How can you sit here and say beauty is objective and this is what beautiful is, while so many people are being like, yeah, and so is this. And you're like, no, it's not, because like the Mona Lisa doesn't have green hair. Who gives a fuck what the Mona Lisa looks like? But she's like 400 years old. Like, I don't care. Just accept that beauty is subjective, because this entire video is you saying beauty is subjective. You're like, in my opinion, I am correct. Saying your opinion is a fact doesn't make it a fact. You might be sitting here being like, well, you're saying these people are beautiful and they're not, so therefore you're lying and it's not a fact. I feel like but we just had this conversation of like, I'm not lying because I find them beautiful. If I say to you, you are beautiful, and I'm telling them the truth, then they are beautiful. It's not that difficult to understand. Like, if I'm not lying and I genuinely find that person beautiful, then they are beautiful. Maybe not to you, but to me, so therefore the word is true and that person is beautiful.
they've decided to turn around and completely go the other way. You know what? If I can't perfectly exemplify society's idea of beautiful, then I'm going to try to dismantle that idea. In that case, it's that I don't even want to look beautiful, so I'm not upset if you don't consider me that.
Saying that we only do this and dress like this and dye our hair and get piercings and tattoos, etc., because we feel like we can't conform to the beauty standard, so we stray so far from it in order to make ourselves feel better, it's just not true. Like, at all. I do this because I feel more comfortable like this. This feels more like myself, and when I look at photos of how I used to dress, I feel sad. And when I found myself and I started to find happiness, the way I dress and expressed myself evolved and it changed, and it now reflects how I currently feel. And it just makes me happier. And if you don't find me beautiful or attractive, I don't care, because there are plenty of people that do. I have never had an issue in finding partners, including cis-het men. Never had an issue with it. I don't really see it being an issue going forwards. And even still, I wouldn't change myself or how I dress or express myself, because this is who I am and how I want to appear. And if other people don't like that, then I don't want them in my lives anyway. They aren't worth my time. Some people do this purely for the purpose of, like, if you don't like this, I don't want to be around you. And I respect that. It works very well. I'm very successful on dating apps in the sense that, like, conservative people like you will never match with me. And so I don't have to go on a bunch of shitty dates with shitty people who think that I'm conservative.
I think beauty is something that is worth pursuing. And again, I'm not saying like we all need to look like supermodels, but just the way you dress, the way you present yourself, that does matter. Some people might say that that's being superficial, but I'm into aesthetics. I'm into art. I think it's part of the human experience to want to look at beauty.
I think this. I am attracted to this. I think this. So you agree that it's subjective? Because it is. It is. I've explained it 7 million times now, but like I just don't think it's sunk in yet. And like, regardless, you're like, it's important to try to be beautiful and to present yourself well. Why do you care though? The left are coming for beauty and they're deconstructing it and they're ruining it. Who cares? You just want to see the same type of person in the media over and over and over again. She's very anti-representation in the media, which doesn't make any fucking sense to me. She's like one of those people who are upset about like people of color ever being on TV, even though she herself is a person of color. Like, it doesn't make sense. I don't understand. I don't get how it's a big deal to just like see other people existing in the real world. Like, I don't get it. She gets upset about Disney saying that they're going to be putting more queer characters in their movies, and that's feeding the woke agenda. Like, no, it's just saying that gay people exist, and so they're gonna be put in movies. How is that a woke agenda? That's just people existing and being in the movies. The fact of the matter is that queer people exist, and putting them in TV shows and movies is just telling people they exist. One of the reasons homophobia exists is because there is no representation, so people think that it's abnormal and it's weird. And so you get singled out. You feel like you're weird. Other people think that you're weird. And so it creates a really difficult time for you. And that can lead to the mental health issues. And you've said yourself, mental illness is a problem. We need to do something about it. Representation can help, but you're against that too. Just let people exist. If you don't like it, then I don't care. My whole thing is that everyone should be able to be themselves as long as they aren't hurting anyone. Who cares? If my existence upsets you, that is something that you need to work on. I don't need to change myself to please you. You need to become more tolerant and understand that people who are different to you exist. I acknowledge and accept that you exist. I disagree with your political views and the people you align with, because a lot of that revolves around restricting myself, my friends, anyone, a lot of people, from being able to live their lives freely and safely. So I have a problem. I don't care what gender you are, what your sexuality is, what your race is, what your job is. I don't care if you're a trad wife or a CEO or whatever. I don't care how many kids you have or if you don't. I literally don't care. I just want everyone to have equal opportunity, equal representation, and the ability to live their lives to the same standard as other people. That is literally all that I and many other leftists are asking for. And I really, really struggle to see how anyone can disagree with that. Like, I sat and watched her videos for like hours and hours, 2 straight days. And I just don't get it. I just really, really struggle to like wrap my head around the fact that people don't agree with that. That's something that I can't comprehend. Anyway, that is my video. I hope that you enjoyed it. Let me know your thoughts and what you want to see me talk about or react to next time. I'm always love to hear your ideas. A massive thank you to my Sprout and Above patrons, whose names are up on the screen right now. And a huge thank you to my Kiwi Cat patrons: Wolf, Toulouse, Bobby, Sparrow, Josh, Robbie, Silly, Robin, The Alienated Librarian, Rosendo, and Akita. I love and appreciate you all so, so much. Thank you so much for joining. If you would like to become a patron, you can go to patreon.com/savvycat or click the link in the description. For as little as £1 a month, you get my videos a day early, as well as a whole bunch of other stuff on other tiers. Don't forget to subscribe to my second channel, Kiwi, with a Q. Also this channel, I forgot to say that, I think. Follow me on Instagram, The Queer Kiwi, and Twitter, That Queer Kiwi. The podcast is coming back if you want to go check that out. Savvy Cat Productions, here and on Spotify and other streaming places. Yeah, I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe. Keep fighting. I love you. Mwah.